Welcome back. I hope you enjoy the exercise. I think it's one of my favorites because the aha moments of the founders when they actually think about the situation and the questions that it all brings, it's fantastic. Because one thing it tells us that there is nothing which is black and white, right? But there are shades of gray. And your knowledge from this section is going to help you to protect the company within these shades of gray, right? So let's look on good and bad leaver. So we had 4 different scenarios under which Martin had to leave Paradise Solution, right? And each of them represented one of the good or bad leaver option. And good and bad leaver option actually says that the reason why the co-founder is leaving your team will either mean that he's a good leaver or a bad leaver. Now what it means for him we will do a little bit later, but let's have a look at what is good or bad leaver. So the co-founder can leave a company under 4 main options, right? Either he resigns, and he resigns for a good reason. Now here we have to borrow from an employment law because we don't have enough court cases of founders. 2 reasons: founders don't have money and time to go to courts. B, it's much less frequent than employees. So we are borrowing from an employment law. And a good reason for a founder to resign is that the business moved more than 50 kilometers from his home, right? And he would need to commute and he can't. Or the business completely changed what they were doing and the original agreement is therefore not valid, right? So that's a good lever. It's not the founder's fault. The circumstances changed so much. You can see him here, resigned, good lever, right? Then we have that the founder resigned for no good reason. And the lens from which we view the good or not good, it's from the lens of your company, of your business. So no good reason is when Martin accepted the offer from the competitor, it's not a good reason for your company. It might be a good reason for Martin, but it's very damaging and not a good reason for your company. So that puts Martin in the bad lever right here, resigned, yeah? Then a founder can be fired. Now, forget for a while about the legal implications of the shareholders that you cannot fire, but an active participating founder can be fired, right? And again, he can be fired for a good reason. Do you remember when Martin did not deliver on his targets? Now, one question we didn't ask there, whether it was his fault, right? Is it because the product was not good or is it because he didn't do his job? So let's assume Martin got fired because he didn't do his job. That makes him a bad leaver. He's fired for good reason. But founder can also be fired for no good reason. There are unfortunately plenty of founders that will tell you that that's what's happened to them. Like, for example, the company changed its business model from B2C to B2B and they no longer need Martin. Now, it's not really his fault, right? And that makes him a good leaver, right? So bear with me. Good leaver and a bad leaver. So what are the consequences for the founder? So for the good leaver, the company can buy out shares of the founder for fair market value. Now there is the next $1 million question: what is the fair market value of early stage pre-cash startup? But that's for another next course. So buy out shares for fair market value, and it's the option for the company. What does that mean? That the founder can also keep the shares. And then we have the bad lever. Buyout shares are typically for less than fair market value, which includes some punitive element, right? So for example, you can say 10% of the value is. So there is a punishment for the founder for damaging your company, and it's the right of the company to buy the shares, not an option. So if the company can afford and wants it, the founder has to sell the shares. So there are different consequences for good and for bad leaver, okay? The application required to define the different consequences, define how you are gonna do the valuation, and how you allocate the shares between the remaining co-founders, right? Because remember, I left, I'm the bad leaver, there is 33%, but it's gonna be allocated between you and the other founders. The best way is to do the pro rata, which means proportionate, right? And what you also need to do, very important, you need to define the co-founder roles, commitment and milestones. Why? Because if you need to fire a co-founder for non-performance, very sad event, and I hope it's not going to happen to you, but if you need to do it, it's very difficult to do it if you did not define what the performance, expected performance is. Are you with me? So that is it for now, and I would just say the bad good lever framework and equity recovery is absolutely essential part, and the reason is protecting your business, protecting you, but also protecting everyone on your team, because the framework, as you could see on the good bad lever, it's fairly balanced. Again, back to the point of fairness, you actually want everyone to feel that if the time comes, the right thing will be done. So, and let's summarize the main key takeaways from the whole course that we did. Number one, your equity is not cheap. It's the most precious thing that you as a founder have. And you have different options how to allocate it. You have the fixed equity, you have the vesting possibilities, and you have the dynamic equity. There are different tools for different times, but now as a founder, you know that you have them and how you use them. And what you need to do is to allocate equity and to put the equity recovery framework in place.